Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Myanmar's treatment of Rohingya Muslims is a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. That's according to the United Nations. A senior official has called for an end to what he called a cruel military operation. The violence began more than 2 weeks ago after Rohingya Muslims attacked police posts in Rakhine State. After the government's counter-attack, more than 300,000 Rohingyas have arrived in neighbouring Bangladesh. Our correspondent Sanjoy Majumdar reports now from Cox's Bazar, close to the border.
When you're starving, you get desperate, and then it becomes dangerous. This aid truck is surrounded by a seething mass of Rohingyas. The organisers, private donors, have brought rice, but are too nervous to hand it out. There's no sign of the police, and things begin to turn ugly. Fights break out. Volunteers try to enforce a sense of order, but it is utterly futile. Those who cannot muscle their way are left defeated and helpless. This aid operation is slowly but surely spinning out of control.
I have 5 people in my family, including 2 small children. Most nights, they just go to bed hungry.
Local groups and individuals are doing their best, but are entirely out of their depth. You get a sense of the desperation. People have just climbed onto this little van, trying their best to get hold of little bags of rice that are being handed out. But it's utterly chaotic. There's no sense of order. There's nobody actually coordinating it. And then look over here. These are clothes that have just been flung on the ground, thrown from the aid trucks as they rush away from the scene. Well-meaning, but an utterly wasted effort. It's a struggle for the Rohingyas, already traumatized after the violence that forced them out of their villages in Myanmar. And what strikes you is how many of them are children. Too young to perhaps fully understand what's happened, yet the terror of what they've experienced is never too far away. It's taken Muhammad Alfaz 10 days to walk to Bangladesh, 1 day for each year of his life.
It was a really difficult journey, and now we live in this camp, where we have to climb down the steep hill to get water. It's hard, but I'm happier here than back there.
They've managed to escape with their lives, but now the Rohingyas are facing a new struggle, trying to survive in their new home. Sanjay Majumdar, BBC News at the Bangladesh-Myanmar border.
Myanmar's treatment of the Rohingya people is a textbook example of ethnic cleansing, the United Nations Human Rights Chief has declared, as he denounced the violence in Rakhine State in the strongest possible terms. Bangladesh described it as genocide, saying Myanmar should be tried in an international court. Around 310,000 Rohingya have now fled from Myanmar into neighbouring Bangladesh, many huddled into makeshift shelters along the roads and in open fields, as our Asia correspondent Jonathan Miller joins us from Cox's Bazar in southern Bangladesh, near the border with Rakhine State.
Good evening, John. I'm only about, well, a few miles up the coast from where I was 10 days ago. Back then, though, we were in Rakhine State, western Myanmar, where the government denied us access to the conflict zone to witness what we eventually saw firsthand today, albeit from across a river in neighbouring Bangladesh. Over there in Myanmar, where Rohingya Muslims have lived for centuries, the Buddhist majority calls them foreigners and wants them out. Now, if I was to put the words fascism and Buddhism in one sentence, you might think that was a bit of an oxymoron, but Buddhist nationalism is on the rise in Asia, and this chauvinism has become nothing short of the state ideology in neighbouring Burma. Now, what started this current killing spree? Well, coordinated attacks by a recently formed Rohingya insurgent group on about 30 police posts in Myanmar just over 2 weeks ago. The insurgent leaders claim that they are only protecting the Rohingya minority who have been persecuted, they say, for decades. The government of Myanmar disputes this, but the response has been absolutely brutal. This is the Rohingya village of Munipara, one of a string of villages set ablaze this morning by the Myanmar military. But what we could see from just across the river in a Bangladeshi fishing village is a smokescreen for the purging of an unwanted people and their indiscriminate but systematic slaughter. Perpetrated by a country whose leader had been persecuted by past military regimes, now she's their apologist, accused of being an accessory to tyranny and terror. From all the way down there to all the way over there, and at several other points up the river, it seems like the whole horizon is on fire. When Aung San Suu Kyi was finally granted her freedom in 2012 and went to Oslo to belatedly present her Nobel Peace Prize lecture, she talked in grand terms of creating a world free of displacement, of homelessness and hopelessness, where every corner would be a sanctuary of freedom and peace. Unbelievably, just 5 years on, it's her government that is responsible for this humanitarian catastrophe. On a tiny spit of land at the end of a bigger spit of land at the mouth of the Naf River, we witnessed thousands of exhausted Rohingya crossing from their blazing homeland. Many had trekked for days over jungled mountains, through monsoon mud. They are dehydrated and hungry, and they've all been through hell. Nur Muhammad was the first off his boat. He was from a village called Razapalong. They're beating, butchering and burning, he said. That's what they're doing over there. Diljar's baby Fatima is 8 weeks old. The military and the vigilantes came and started shooting in our village, she said. I decided it was better to run than die. They burned down all our houses. We've been in the jungle for the past 12 days. 11-year-old Umar's village, Gurlakari, was visited by soldiers too.
When they started shooting, people came out of their houses to see what was going on. Then the helicopter arrived and they started shelling the village.
Umar's father was the village imam. They killed him, he told me.
People started running, and as they did, the military started shooting. Even when we were in the mountains, the military were firing at us and killing us.
This is the third wave of ethnic cleansing of Rohingya. 1978, 1991, now this. With 700,000 now in Bangladesh, more than 2/3 of the entire Rohingya population has been forced out of their homeland. Another 140,000 live in concentration camps in Rakhine. Amid breathtaking stoicism, I heard a woman sobbing.
The entire village was burned down, every house. Children who could not get out were burned alive, and only a few people managed to escape. Oh, my dear friends, this is what happened. We were 7, but only I got out. Everyone in the house was burned alive. My 3 daughters, my 2 sons, and my husband.
There's not much here for the 310,000 who've made it to Bangladesh in the past 2 weeks alone. Most survive on the charity and generosity of Bangladeshis. For Rohingya refugees, food, water, shelter, sanitation, all in short supply. But it's worse than that. Their deprivation is total. They've lost their rights, their homes, their freedom, even their identity as Rohingya people. Ahabada Begum is 75 years old. Her village, called Nubanar, was torched this morning. The military shot people, raped young women and burned our houses down, she said. The testimony of every single person we spoke to today was consistent. Aung San Suu Kyi doesn't have direct control over the Myanmar military, but she has branded the accounts of mass murder and ethnic cleansing an iceberg of misinformation from terrorists. a petition to strip her of her Nobel Peace Prize has now nearly 500,000 signatures.
Jonathan Miller reporting. Well, now, a short time ago, I spoke to Ravinya Shamdasani from the UN Human Rights Commission and began by asking her what were the specific issues involved with the situation in Myanmar.
As you know, the situation of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar has gone from bad to worse to catastrophic. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has been warning that this would happen. He warned that if the government did not reverse its years of systematic discrimination against the Rohingya Muslims, the situation could spiral out of control. And this is exactly what we are seeing. Almost 300,000 people have crossed the border into Bangladesh in a matter of weeks.
This is blatant ethnic cleansing. Surely names have to be called. I mean, Aung San Suu Kyi is politically somewhere near the top of all this. Does she not need to be named?
Well, as the High Commissioner said, this certainly does seem to be a textbook example of what is ethnic cleansing. We have been engaging with the civilian government in Myanmar for many years now. We put out a report 2 years ago saying that the persistent discrimination, the widespread, systematic discrimination against them could possibly amount to crimes against humanity. Unfortunately, the situation has gone from bad to worse. There's apparently been a nurturing of violent extremism. There appears to be, a concerted effort to drive these people out of their homes, burning down of entire villages, extrajudicial killings, even the possible laying of landmines around the border.
You see, I mean, she is saying that she doesn't run the army and that it's the army doing this, but she doesn't seem to want to condemn it.
Well, we have, the civilian government during the transition. I think the international community had a lot of goodwill towards the new government. There were high expectations, of course, but there was also the understanding that this will take time. This is a delicate transition, and it has to be handled delicately. A lot of leeway was given to the government. However, several years down the road, the situation is just absolutely, as I said, catastrophic. To not even condemn the kinds of violence that these people are facing, to claim that the villages of Rohingya Muslims are being burnt down by the people themselves in order to get international attention. To simply deny the reality, this is not the reaction of any government, of any leader.
Has the High Commissioner actually been able to speak person to person with Aung San Suu Kyi?
The High Commissioner has spoken to Aung San Suu Kyi on a number of occasions. The last time was when we issued a report on the atrocities that were committed after the October violence of last year. And he called on her to bring...
He's not been able to talk to her in this period, not been able to get through.
He has not spoken to her since we put out our report in February on the results of the previous round of violence, which itself was terrible.
But he's presumably trying virtually daily.
Well, we are trying. I mean, we have been engaging with the authorities, including with the ambassador to Myanmar here, including in country itself, including through our various offices at various levels. We have been reaching out to the government. But the High Commissioner's last call with Aung San Suu Kyi was back in February.
Ravinya Shamdasani, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Thank you.